The only thing we have to fear is beer itself.
Beer. So many choices.
Only no function beer well without.
Woohoo! Beer!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer Busters, where we're going to bring you the news and reviews of your favorite brews. I am Wayne Baker, and I am joined by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hefner.
And unfortunately not Dan Baker this episode. He is a little under the weather. He got a COVID test. We don't think it's COVID. Cross our fingers. We were recently at Ocean City, and he was attacked by the sea. And I think maybe that's what made him sick, but we're not sure yet. So we wish him well. He won't be with us this evening. But we will persevere nonetheless. And we have a very, very exciting episode. We would like to introduce our guests, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
I'm Betsy Lay, co-founder, owner, head brewer, Lady Justice Brewing.
And I am Allison Wisniewski, and I'm the director of marketing at Lady Justice Brewing.
Yes,
and we're married.
Yeah,
that's the thing too.
That should be noted. It's full nepotism here in the Wisniewski household.
Very cool, very cool. So yes, Lady Justice Brewing, that being in Aurora, Colorado. We'll get to all those details in a moment, but of course we have to do our housekeeping at the top of the show. Don't forget, you can follow all of our shenanigans on the internet. We are at Beer Busters on Instagram and Twitter. We are Beer Busters Podcast on Facebook. You can go to beerbusterspodcast.com to find all our episodes and articles and things. You can go to beerbusterspodcast.com/shop and buy some merch. And of course, patreon.com/beerbusters to sign up and support the show. But with all of that out of the way, I did want to start this episode mentioning the Brews and Bands for Bart Beer Fest that is coming up. We do want to plug that again. As most of you listening probably have heard by now, unfortunately, our friend Bartley Kaminsky has lost his battle with cancer. But the Beer Fest in his honor will still go on, and all the proceeds are still going to go towards his family and covering the many, many medical expenses that they currently have to deal with in this very trying time. So don't forget, that's August 14th. It's going to be at Tattered Flag Brewery and Stillworks, which is in Middletown, Pennsylvania. It'll be noon to 4. We will be on site recording a podcast episode, doing our fest thing, interviewing a couple people here and there for a couple minutes at a time. For tickets, you can go to hopheadsgear.com. You can check out the event on Facebook, other social medias for more details about the breweries and bands that are going to be there. We're going to make it a festival that Bart would be proud of, and we know all of our listeners out there either know Bart personally or have heard of him through the beer world, and we would love to see all of your faces there to celebrate the life of a true absolute legend. So we are very much looking forward to seeing everyone there in August.
So as of recording, there are 38 confirmed breweries, and as of release, all of those breweries have now been announced. Of course, Tattered Flag, Rotunda, Stickman, Poor Man's Workhorse, St. Boniface, Our Town, Mood Duck, Wingcraft, Stolen Sun, Trogs, Funk, Pilgaroo, Seven Sirens, LB Love Drafts, Naked Brewing, Mad Chef, Fourscore, Levante, Chatty Monks, Liquid Noise, Evergreen, Root Down, Rainy Cellars, Big Dog, Boneshire, Shy Bear, Lion's Head, Yards, Wolves, Zero Day, Artifice, Ales and Mead, I don't know them, Sam Adams, Dancing Gnome, Human Robot, Rehab, and some other vendors that are listed as well. I should have taken a deep breath and seen how far I could have gotten through the list. Probably not that far. But super excited that all of these breweries are going to be attending and serving up some kick-ass beers. Another beer that will be at the event will be Where's the Haze Bart, which is the special collaboration West Coast IPA, Bart's favorite style, which will also be on tap at 18 different spots around the area. I know as of recording, St. Boniface is releasing theirs tomorrow. Wolf Brewing should have it on tap this coming week. So take a look for that. In addition, if you want to support in other ways, there is also a soap in Bart's honor. Goldfinch Meadows has created, along with Dean Pierce, Where's the Suds Bart, which is a soap that was lovingly crafted with the West Coast IPA, Where's the Haze Bart. And it is swirled with Bart's favorite colors of green and black, garnished with hops and stamped with his Hop Heads logo. So you can purchase a bar of that soap, which proceeds will go towards the cause, at goldfinchmeadows.com. I'll shoot that up on our social media sites as well. And the official GoFundMe page is also circling around. It is in the event page on Facebook under Brews and Bands for Bart Beer Festival. The official GoFundMe page, you'll notice, is posted by Dean Pierce, who is the head organizer for the fundraiser and for the event. So check that out. So we're looking forward to co-sponsoring, recording at this event, and just having a kick-ass celebration for Bart and how awesome he was.
Absolutely.
I think I covered everything.
I think you did. And our entire last episode was pretty much about this event. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen if you want more details. And if you just want to hear us tell cool stories about how great of a person Bartley Kaminsky was in his brief time on this earth. But to the issue at hand, Lady Justice Brewing, thank you so much for joining us, Betsy and Allison. So Lady Justice is pretty unique as a brewery in that it is, in fact, a nonprofit operation. So we want to just give our listeners like the quick elevator pitch about, what Lady Justice Brewing is and what you guys do.
So, we're nonprofit in the fact that we don't keep our profits, but we are an LLC. You can't be a nonprofit and serve beer because the government wants its taxes. So we function like a nonprofit, but we do have a little bit of money we're allowed to keep. But we're in Aurora, Colorado, founded in 2016. And we were operating out of a very, very small location in West Denver. And, we donate 100% of the profits over the cost from our community-supported beer membership program. And when we first started, our space was too small for a tap room. So our CSB program was the only way that we could get beer out to people. And so we started off pretty small, but we were able to figure out up front how much the memberships would cost, and then we could figure out how much we could donate beyond that. And so we've been operating with that model since 2016, and then we just kept growing and got we were literally bursting at the seams from our tiny little 300 square foot brewery that we started with. And so we moved into our first brick and mortar tap room and a 7-barrel brew house 3 days before COVID hit in 2020. And so we've been operating out of there since then, and we've expanded our membership a little bit and have absolutely expanded our beer and our distribution and all that. But so we're basically a brewery that gives its money away to Colorado nonprofits that work with women and girls.
Yeah, so we make sure to have that split and call it out really clearly, just for folks who have known us for so long, who know us as the brewery that gives all our money away. Now that we exist in a tap room with employees, and we have to pay ourselves, and that's okay too. And owning that sentence is okay to say. So we split the money two ways. 100% of the proceeds after cost from the CSB go back into the community. And we were able to do $8,000 this year for the 2021 CSB between two organizations. And then the tap room itself, we use the language, the community fabric of our tap room is how we stay involved in the community. So we'll have collaboration brews, we'll have nights that organizations can come in and host events for free or low cost. We'll donate out beer to different organizations and nonprofits that are working to promote the status of women and girls. So the taproom part is a little more, it's traditional taproom, but with the knowledge for the drinkers that probably some of the beer that they're drinking, most of the beer that they're drinking is connected to the community and giving back.
Now, I first heard about you guys through the Hop Culture and Sam Adams, their virtual Queer Beer Fest this past June. And I guess your Sandra Day IPA was a part of that fest pack. And I was super excited because we had a trip planned to Denver. So I very quickly added your tap room to our itinerary. So do you want to talk briefly about your involvement with that fest and that beer, which I believe was not originally intended to be an IPA?
Yeah, our involvement with that festival was, I don't even remember how we got to it. I think they just asked us.
Yeah, it was like, and it was the most wild experience for our tiny little brewery to be
no
like,
idea.
"Oh, Sam Adams, you know us? Hi."
I didn't even know Sam Adams was a part of it when they asked. I had no idea. But the ask, they approached us because we're one of the very few queer-owned breweries in the United States. We're also one of the very few queer-owned and queer-brewed breweries in the United States. And so, if you're going to be a queer beer fest, you need to have queer representation in the beer. And so they asked us to be a part of it. And we sent our Sandra Day IPA, which is our flagship. It's the very first recipe we ever brewed. So we sent that out, and it was a virtual festival. So we sent out, I don't remember what it was, like 50 cases of Sandra Day out to New York, and then they sent it in the mail to everybody with all the other beer. But yeah, the Sandra Day IPA, we brewed that. That beer came about in a really strange way. When we were fundraising to open up our little tiny space, the American Bar Association had found our Indiegogo campaign and wrote a blog post about it. And in the blog post, they were like, what would your legal themed beer be named? This is kind of fun because my two co-founders are both lawyers. So there was this sort of fun little lawyer theme throughout the brewery. And so people started suggesting beer names. And somebody suggested, Sandra Day O'Porter, after the first female Supreme Court justice, Sandra Day O'Connor. And, a few days later, we get this email, and the subject line was "Mom wants an IPA," and we were like, that's a weird thing to email anybody.
I don't care what your mom wants.
Yeah. So Kate opened the email, and it was from Scott O'Connor, who's Sandra Day O'Connor's son. And he was just like, hey, my mom reads that blog and she thinks this is cool, but she doesn't want a porter named after her. She prefers an IPA. So if you want to make her an IPA, we'll let you use her name. And we lost our goddamn minds about it because we hadn't even opened yet. We weren't even a brewery yet. We're like, I guess we have
just casually homebrewing, thinking what the hell?
Yeah, actually have to open this brewery now. We did, and it's one of our most popular beers now. And Sandra Day's she has family who live in Denver, so they come by and get the beer and say hi. And it's been a really fun connection to have with that family. They're just really nice, wonderful people. So, yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, when you led with the subject line, "My mom wants an IPA," I didn't realize that's where it was going to go. That's pretty awesome.
Neither did we.
Yeah.
Truly, I don't care what your mom wants.
Kate was chatting me. I thought somebody had died or something. I didn't understand what happened because she was flipping out.
Oh my god.
She was like, please call me. Oh my god. And I was like, what? And then she could barely talk because she was freaking out so much. So yeah, it was a wild time.
That's great. Wow. Have you considered at all brewing a follow-up beer called Mom Wants an IPA? Because I think that would be an awesome name.
That could have just been the description on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scott O'Connor's mom wanted this beer.
Maybe you've heard of her. I don't know.
That's super awesome. I love it.
So probably the most visually impactful thing is the mural that you guys have in your tap room, which I had seen through social media prior to visiting your tap room a few weeks ago. And I'd never been so excited to visit a brewery simply to take a picture. And I actually, Dana can attest to this, I purposely chose my seat so that I was taking my beer picture facing the correct direction. And I think your bartender may have giggled at me a little bit too. But for those that don't know, you have this amazing mural done by Chelsea Lewinsky with Dolores Huerta, who of course is the civil rights activist and co-founder of United Farm Workers, Marsha P. Johnson, an activist and drag queen and mother, and of course RBG Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who we also got a selfie with, the cardboard cutout as soon as we walked in the door, the legend, Supreme Court Justice and women's rights lawyer. And I immediately took a picture of the mural and sent it out, in a few chat groups that I have with friends. And very, very dear friend of mine, Dow, recognized Marsha P. Johnson right away. And I really wasn't familiar with Marsha P. Johnson. And he said, you need to watch the Netflix documentary on her. Like you have to. And Dow's the kind of friend, usually when he recommends a documentary or a podcast or something, usually it's worth watching or listening to. And I have to tell you, finally today, I took the time and I watched that documentary. And of course, I was crying by the end of it. But, it made me sit and think for a moment of like, what a powerful experience I had because I visited your tap room. Like the knowledge that I now have about this amazing woman and activist, and, now knowing, going from knowing very little about her impact and her power, and now just having such a respect for her and for everything that I learned today. And first, I want to thank you for that, because coming to your tap room and seeing your mural, it gave me that experience. But I kind of want to know the story behind the mural and why those three women were chosen, and just let you know how powerful it is for me, but I'm sure for many people that visit your tap room.
Yeah. Well, when we first moved in that space, we had found that space and bought it before COVID was a thing. So we found that space in February of 2020. And so we had this whole theme, it was going to be the idea was to make it sort of 1960s-ish, law office sort of theme. Right. And go that direction. And then COVID hit, and I was like, well, any of the money I was going to spend on the inside of this brewery, I'm not. Right. So we moved to a to-go model, just like everybody else did. So, when it came time to finally think about the inside of that space, it was right around the same time that the arts district that we're in. So we're located in the Aurora Cultural Arts District, and they were putting on this thing called Colfax Canvas, because the road that we're on is Colfax Avenue. That was really just highlighting and celebrating really amazing mural artists. Specifically, we tried to get as many as we could from Denver and Aurora. And so Aaron, who runs that program, just got in touch with me, and he was just like, hey, all of our other paintings are on the outside of walls. So there's amazing murals all over those 2 or 3 blocks of Colfax. And he said, but I really think you could do something really cool here. If you want a mural on this wall, I can connect you with this new up and coming mural artist named Chelsea. I think y'all would hit it off. And so I was like, sure, I don't know what I'm going to do this space anymore.
Everything is on fire.
Yeah. And so, and, just be able to bring in a local artist, she's from the area, and just be able to pay her to do this work and honor her artwork instead of me trying to figure it out. Felt really good too. So Chelsea and I met, and the idea was just to put some powerful women on the wall that we both really loved and respected. So we made lists of women we thought would be cool on the wall, and both of us had those 3 women on our list. So we're like, all right, let's do it. Dolores, Marsha, and Ruth, let's put them up there. So so that was one of the first kind of big murals that Chelsea has painted. She has since taken off in a way that's just been so amazing. So she's out in
LA right now. She was at an event with Rita Ora last night. I cannot. Wow. She got very cool overnight. Yeah. So I can't wait to be we knew her well. She also did a mural right next door to us. We're next to a really excellent pawn shop. And on the wall of the pawn shop where the parking lot is, she did a mural of Amanda Gorman. And it's beautiful. Yeah. So we brewed a beer for that.
And cool. What's cool about that mural, too, is everybody walks in and recognizes Ruth, obviously. The mural was painted just 2 or 3 months before she died. So when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, we put a spotlight on her part of the mural and just left it on overnight so that people were stopping by just to see it. It became a little bit of a memorial for her, which was really cool to see. But a lot of people don't know Marsha and they don't know Dolores. And so we'll get some older folks in who will recognize Dolores, and they'll like, I recognize her name, but I don't remember what she did. And so it's really a learning moment for a lot of people that come in and they're like, who are these people? And I'm like, well, their quotes are up there on the wall, Google them while you're sitting here having a beer and like learn a little something. And so it's been fun to watch people connect to just some strong women just by sitting down and having a beer.
Mm-hmm. And if you go to Chelsea's website, chelsealewinsky.com, she has t-shirts, which I may have ordered a few of them today, just when I need more t-shirts, but t-shirts of the mural and ones with each individual lady on as well, which it's super cool that she has a whole Lady Justice Brewing part of her online store. And
I had a ball putting that together. Honestly, It was like 10 a.m. on a Saturday, and I was like, babe, let's learn how to use Squarespace together. It's been like,
she became a fast friend.
Yeah, she's a good soul, good spirit, good energy, and making incredible art around Denver, big time. She also just did walls at Wagwan Brewing, which it's a brand new brewery that just opened up. That's amazing. So she did their wall art as well. She's just taken off. She had done, you've seen it in person, so if you can believe it, she had been painting faces with spray paint for 10 months when she came to do our mural.
That whole thing she did with spray paint. It was wild. This is creepy, and she doesn't know this, but sometimes I would turn on the tap room like surveillance cameras while she was painting just to watch it, because it was like so
amazing.
It was so fascinating to watch her work.
So.
Yeah, she rules.
That's pretty cool. It's super cool to watch like that sort of detailed painting with spray paint. Like you can't imagine a can of spray paint can produce such a detailed image.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's cool. So I did want to back up a little bit. You mentioned a couple of lawyers being on the co-founders team. So talk a little bit about where the original inspiration came from for Lady Justice and who the sort of founding group is.
The founding members of Lady Justice Brewing Company are Betsy Lay, Kate Power, and Jen Cuesta, and then myself by proxy, because I am married to Betsy and the one who does marketing. So we all met serving in AmeriCorps in 2008, 2009, 2010. And over that time, and we have just a core group of friends from that AmeriCorps group who have been our biggest supporters, our biggest champions. But Kate, Jen, and Betsy came up with the concept for Lady Justice after a really long day. We worked in capacity building, and so trying to raise funds for a nonprofit that worked in the education sector. And after a really long day of asking people for money and having a lot of response in the 2008 time be, I have no money, it's a recession, please stop calling. They went and grabbed a beer at one of our favorite pubs in Denver. And while they were sitting there looking around, they were like, look at all these people who are willing to spend their money here, but we can't get $10 out of them. Why can't we just brew beer and then give that money away? And it was like, ding. So from that moment, I kind of stuck with them. No one knows who came up with the name Lady Justice, but we like to think it was Jen because
I think it was Kate. We think the whole idea was Jen's idea.
And then Kate came up with the name. Yeah. So alcohol was involved. So fast forward a couple of years, Kate and Jen went off to law school in 2 different states. And Kate wrote about Lady Justice for her business law class. They were just like, make up a business and write laws around it. And so she did. And after the class, her professor pulled her aside and was like, hi, do this. Do this now. This is so smart. And she called Betsy and Jen and was like, I'm moving back to Denver when I finish law school. Should we just open Lady Justice? I'm just going to register it real quick. So she registered in Maine as an L3C, so a low profit limited liability company. And so the best concept to relate that to is Tom's Shoes. So for everything that comes in the door, something else has to go out. Yeah. So that was kind of the birth of the concept in 2014. 2015, we became registered as a business. 2016, we were operational. And so really slow build, but that concept was really truly around how do we brew beer to make the world a better place? And for us, for all of us, we come from working in nonprofit, and we knew very much that there are experts out there who are doing so much incredible work and they just can't get the funding under them. And so when we started, it was like maybe $50 to $200 micro grants, but it was something. And we're like, we know what it felt like to get that amount of money when we would do cold calls. So being able to do that was kind of the impetus of what kicked off where we are now. And here we are still doing it with a full tap room and employees who ask us questions about a business. And like, here we are making it happen, which is really, really excellent. We've had to flex a little bit, and that switch from the L3C to the LLC was a big, big move for us. But the reality is it made it a lot easier for us to have a tap room that we could pay people what they were worth dollar for dollar in the industry, as well as kind of be in complete control of the money that we were giving away.
So then is this a full-time thing then for all the founding members at this point?
No.
Okay.
It is
Fair
not. We all worked full-time jobs throughout all of this. When we started, nights and weekends, it was manageable. It was a 1-barrel system. We had anywhere from 75 to 150 members that we were making beer for. We were only really having to brew about once or twice a month. So that was pretty manageable. And then when we knew that it was time to expand and grow, we really took our time trying to figure out what that meant for us. And the conclusions that all three of us came to were that Jen didn't have time to balance Lady J and her legal career. So she decided to take a step back. So she does, she'll pour at events, and she shows up when she shows up.
We call it in the wind. Jen lives in the wind, and she comes in with a breeze and she leaves with a breeze, and we love it. And
yeah, she's
it's
wonderful.
The best.
And Kate was, Kate and I were trying to figure out, like, what do we do next? How do we grow this? What feels right? And eventually it just came down to Kate saying to me one night, she's like, Betsy, you clearly have a different vision than I do for this. And I think yours is the one that we should go with. So I'm just going to give this to you and you like run with it. So I took over ownership of Lady J and started searching for space. And so the plan was for me to quit my full-time job when the tap room opened. And to go back to brewing and all that. And then COVID hit immediately.
Like the week she was going to quit, she came home. She was like, babe, I think it's time. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Like, we're ready. And she was like, that COVID-19 thing though, might I'll just hold off a week and see what happens. And like, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God she held off a week.
God.
So,
I remember the days when they thought that was going to be 2 weeks and it'll be gone and, won't be a thing anymore.
LOL. So I quit my job a few weeks ago. So I'll be going full time in a couple of weeks. So it's finally happened. So I'll be the first founding person paid by Lady J. We do have our front of house staff, our beer tenders, and our taproom manager. We've been paying since they've come on, obviously, because that's like extremely illegal not to do that. We want to do that. But yeah, it took a lot of time and some growing pains in the new space during COVID to get to a place where I was like, I either need to give this brewery to somebody else who can run it, or I need to quit my job and do this full time. So
doing academic directing for a grad school. Betsy had a very big job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so two very, very full-time jobs.
Yeah, I was busy.
Well, congratulations.
And you guys, congratulations. Absolutely. That's amazing.
Really awesome.
Finally.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine, you went from brewing once or twice a month on the barrel system, and you're canning beers. You're even shipping beers to Missouri, Maine, Illinois, DC, Florida, New York, Connecticut, and Alaska. I mean, I have to imagine that really bumped up your brewing schedule once you started canning and shipping beers. Why would you do that to yourself?
Well, see, I was really smart and I didn't do that to myself. So when we moved into that tap room, we have a good friend named Amy who was head brewer and then director of operations at Renegade Brewing, which is one of the oldest breweries in Denver at this point. They just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. And when Amy, when we left our tiny little 300 square foot space, we spent about 9 months sharing space with another brewery, just to have a little bit more room and a couple of beers on tap. And when we were in that space, Amy had to leave her job because she had brain cancer and couldn't continue. And so in her recovery of that post-surgery, I offered to just let her come and brew at Lady J so she could get her brewing chops back. It was a small enough system. It was pretty low risk. I could be there with her in case anything happened. And then so when we moved into the tap room, I asked her to come on as head brewer, and she did. And she was there until she got notice that her cancer came back in November. And so she had to basically give me a crash course on that 7-barrel system in about 2 weeks, because her surgery was one that she wasn't sure if she was ever going to be able to speak again when they were done with it. And so she's like, I kind of have to teach you everything I know now because I don't know what physical shape my body will be in, or like emotional, mental, or if I'm gonna live. And I was like, okay, so let's learn. Let's do this. So I basically shadowed her for like 2 weeks before that surgery, and then came on as head brewer. So it was this sort of unexpected thing that happened last December, and she's doing great, by the way. She's wonderful. She's got a really cute little baby and wife at home that she gets to hang out with all the time now. But she's not brewing. And so so I tried to plan ahead, right? Like at first I was like, okay, I'll quit my job and I'll do Lady J. And then I was like, all right, I'll bring Amy on. And now it's like, nope, Betsy, you're going to like run this company and you're going to brew. And that's just the way it's going to be. So.
Wow. Well,
so here we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. And, cheers to you for keeping the whole thing going and getting through all those challenges. That's really amazing.
If you get me on the right day, I will give you it for free.
I've offered it to many
There
patrons.
are some days where I'm like, does anybody want this brewery?
Sometimes I'll have a really good idea, and I'm like, that is wonderful. Do you want to own the Lady Justice Brewing Company? I offer it to our taproom manager. He's always just like, please stop. So, great.
It's a labor of love.
Yeah.
Well, and recently you got some national attention on CBS This Morning. And I have to admit, I watched that video, cried, and immediately reached out to you because I'm like, I need these women on our podcast, like 100%. And I was very impressed by how quickly you guys got back to me. And I may have done a little dance. I was like, oh my God, they said they got back to me. They said they'd be on the show. So I was very excited about that. But holy crap, how did that happen? And what was that like being interviewed for that show?
That was wild.
So here's the thing. We are like our leadership team. So like our Laura, who does our operations, Kate, we have a group text and it's just never not going. I'm like looking at my phone and seeing it. So we talk about any and everything. We're also just very good friends who love each other very much outside of this job. And we were texting at 7 a.m. I sent a text because it hit me while we were watching CBS This Morning. I was like, oh my God, we should just brew a beer for Gail. Like, what if we brewed a beer? I was like, should I Google? Like, does Gail drink? What does she drink? So it's just like this goofy conversation we're having in our text thread. And we land on, let's brew a beer called Morning Brews instead of Morning News. We thought we're so crafty. Came up with all of this. This was in like April. And then that was the end of it. And I was like, let's make sure to brew it around her anniversary where she wears her yellow dress, and we'll just put the yellow dress on the can. It's going to be great. Fast forward to us getting an email truly out of the blue in June from CBS This Morning, from this wonderful producer. And she was like, hello, I work at CBS This Morning, and we're coming out to Colorado to do a different story, but we'd love to do a full length feature on you. And we legitimately, I was downstairs doing yoga, fully in down dog, and I have a little watch that like sends text, and it was like bing, 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 and I was like, it's 6 a.m. What could this be? And I looked at my phone, and it was from our operations manager, and she was just writing CBS emailed us, and so I fell, and I came running up the stairs. And I threw my phone at Betsy while she was literally watching CBS This Morning. I was like, CBS email us! freaking out. And she was like, I don't understand what you're saying. Well, meanwhile, we had opened the email. So she opened her inbox. She's like, I don't see it. And I was like, it's been read. And like, so we're just screaming at each other. We have a group FaceTime call. We're all screaming, crying. The joy that we felt. So we immediately emailed her back and we were like, is this a prank?
Are you Scott O'Connor?
Yeah. I know you, Scott. And we sent her screenshots of our group text and said, this is literally our dream. And she was like, oh, Gail's going to love this. We're coming. Like, if you're in, we're coming. So they gave us, a week's notice. And we've had this happen a few times. We've had some national requests and interest, but most of it falls through. And so we were kind of preparing for that. Kind of not. But as they kept emailing, they were really like, can I get some video of the tap room? Can you show me some intro? Can you, like, all before meeting? And so I was like, okay, this feels real. As someone who works in media and PR, I understand what that is. And they showed up and they were the most, Dana Jacobson is a living queen who we just don't deserve, doing the most incredible reporting, just featuring like women and non-binary folks left and right as often as she can. She shared so much about her story and how she got into sports broadcasting and what that's like as a woman. And she is amazing. But that entire day was so incredible and such a fun way to feature our story. And Betsy had the pleasure of getting to start a brew at 2 p.m. So she didn't get home until 11 p.m. And that was the real gift. What a fun day. We say.
I was in a really good mood by the end of that.
Super fun. It was, but it just, that experience was, I mean, a game changer and has opened us up to so many new people. The most wonderful people. 90% of the messages we're getting are wonderful. 5% are gibberish and 5% are awful.
We're getting these ones that were just like hilarious, just like old dudes in like Virginia who had seen it first because they were on the East Coast. They're like, I'm just calling to say I saw you in the news and I'm just proud of you. It was just like, okay,
they're very sweet. Yeah.
Great.
But so it's been a couple weeks since it aired. And we've, been pretty busy. We're still getting messages. Still, like, we just got a strange call yesterday from someone who recommended a beer named after Rosie O'Donnell. And we were like, no. So people love sharing their ideas with us. But it's also been a game changer for meeting folks like you, for like when we get to meet different people who are doing such awesome stuff in the beer world who we didn't know, because we are pretty isolated. Like, Denver's a beer town and we know who we know. And it's been a big game changer for us in getting involved in bigger beer networks, which is cool.
That's awesome.
And I'm happy to hear that 90% of the responses have been quite positive, but you've also been transparent about some of the not so nice responses as well, posting a few of them on your social media pages, and right now sexism is kind of a big buzzword in the craft beer world. And luckily there's a lot of positive movement with the Brave Noise collaboration, with people opening up and being honest about their stories and, celebrating women in beer a little bit more. And now the whole safe bar training is going on a lot here in the Philadelphia area. So I think there is some positive movement forward, but of course, any big change like that is going to take some time and a few bruises along the way as well.
Yeah, we've gotten it the whole time we've existed. The letters and the calls and the emails and the people at beer festivals, it's nothing new to us. Kate says this all the time when we talk about it, just the brewery as a whole. We never expected to be pioneers of any sort in this industry. We just wanted to make beer and give money away. Amy talked about it a lot when she was brewing for us, when people would repost about her and say this female brewer, and she would message them and say, just take out female. It's okay for me to just be a brewer. Like, we don't always have to call that out. However, we also understand the power that holds, and that we had someone come up to us at a beer festival who brought his 4-year-old daughter and said, my little girl wants to be a brewer like her daddy, but I wanted her to meet someone who looks like her mommy. And like, it was such a sweet moment. And immediately we're all just like, you can be a brewer to this child. Like, so those, it does matter. And sharing our stories is important. And Betsy's been, I'll let her talk about it, but Betsy's really jumped in. The crappy part of what happened to Brienne is that people turned to the female brewers in Denver and said, like, tell us about your story and what are we going to do about it? And so it was like, you do the work to fix the problem of being, the oppressor and the oppressed, right? So like that happened. However, Betsy super stepped up and made a lot of stuff happen. And now we have a lot of movement in the Denver area, the greater Denver area, for making change. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, when Brienne's stuff hit, it became clear pretty quickly that, our friends and colleagues in the industry in Denver were kind of hurting and reeling and really angry. And it was a traumatic, the retelling of all these stories is really traumatic for a lot of people. So there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of pain and a lot of anger. And so as part of our mission as Lady J, it's sort of our duty to offer up community space where it's needed and when it's needed. And so I didn't tell anybody that I did this, but I just posted that.
She casually told me the day before I was supposed to have surgery, hey, I'm going to host this thing at the brewery. And I was like, can you leave the house? And she was like, I will be. Thank you.
I decided that Lady J was just going to host space to just talk and be with each other and maybe figure out what we're going to do next. Because in my work before beer, I did a lot of community building and organizing and been in a lot of spaces that were having a lot of hard conversations. And I could immediately see that the beer space just hadn't had these conversations yet. And they weren't really necessarily equipped to have them. Because that's not what beer has been publicly and outwardly for a lot of people, but it has been a lot of people's experiences privately. So to have this stuff come out in public, I was like, we need to talk about this. And I don't know that there are a lot of other people who are equipped enough to talk about this. And because we're Lady J and we're shielded from some of it, and because we have women running the show, I felt pretty safe being able to say, like, let's just host conversations at Lady Justice. And so I posted about it, and then I told everybody at Lady Justice we were doing this, and of course they were like on board immediately. But it kind of blew up, and so we were getting all these like posts and reposts of people being like, we're going to be at the meeting at Lady Justice. Are you? And I was like, holy crap, like we can only fit 45 people in the tap room. I don't know what the hell we're going to do. So we set up this RSVP, and 100 people RSVP'd. And so luckily the People's Building is down the street from us, which is a city-run event and art space. It's the same organization that did Chelsea's mural. So I called Aaron and I was like, hey, do you have space for 100 people last minute on Monday? And he's like, yeah, for sure. Anything you need, we're there. So we moved down the street and had a really good, I don't know, what was that, 3-hour meeting space. We had a women identifying and non-binary space
for the first hour, just so that women in that space could feel have time to decompress with each other and maybe hold a little bit of security in that space before everybody else showed up. So we did that, and that group has turned into sort of an action oriented. And so we were trying to meet once a month and just, we do it as a beer swap. We try to like hang out, have fun, and then talk about what's going on and share our frustrations and our anger, and then like what we're going to do next. So I think this will end up becoming the team that really makes some serious changes, at least in the Denver area. So that was kind of how Lady J played into all of this. And it's interesting to see
it'll be interesting to see where we are a year from now, because this group of 100 people at this meeting came up with 3 action items for us to work on over the next year, to help reduce assault and harassment in the beer industry here in the Denver area. So I hope that it works. I hope people stay serious with it. I think at the very least it was an eye-opening experience, and that folks who weren't experiencing this before can at least look around and see what's happening and maybe do things differently. And at the most, it's going to be a giant culture shift. And I hope we end up in the giant culture shift side of things. And so, there's a lot of breweries that are going through training and really figuring out how to run their companies in more equitable ways. And so I think a year or two from now, I'm hopeful that the beer industry will be at least a space where we're not hiding this stuff anymore. So
yeah, we are having similar gatherings in the Philadelphia area. Love City Brewing in the city was, I believe, the first. And one of the owners there is a woman, and she has a background in some sort counseling that her pre-beer world brought some knowledge to the discussion. And I know that several other breweries, especially women-owned or partially women-owned breweries in the area, have been hosting similar things. And you're right. I am very curious to see where we are a year or two from now, and hope the conversation keeps going, but also that change happens. And the safe bar training, which I mentioned earlier, is something that's making me hopeful. But on the other side, I also hope it's not just something where, okay, you have this training and now we can put this certificate in the window to say that our staff has been trained. Like there does need to be some accountability and some follow up, and to make sure that people are held accountable for their actions, and that we have a place that everyone can feel safe to work. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, accountability was a thing that came up a lot in our meetings as well. And I'm working on a couple of projects with some people right now to help address some of that. So I hope that, I think, I don't know, I think at least now, like there's like before it happened, and now we have it after it happened. So, and this is similar to, like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd's murders last year, where it's like we were all of us were witness to these things that happened. So we can't say that we don't know about it anymore, right? We can't say that we don't know about this anymore. So now it's about what is our response, and what are we going to do going forward? So at least now there aren't any excuses for being blind to it. So that's a good first step, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, and it's super important with moments like that where something comes to the fore that wasn't. I mean, I don't think anyone is shocked to learn that there was sexism in the beer industry. Like it wasn't like necessarily totally like shocking, but there is that impetus to like keep the conversation going, to keep the momentum going, and it's both on the industry side and the consumer side. And we talked about this several episodes ago when all this stuff first happened, where like as a beer consumer, like you vote with your dollar, like learn about the people you're buying beer from, because there's people that we personally knew and were cool with that were accused of doing some pretty heinous things, and you just have to be aware where your dollars are going. I mean, and that's one way to make a change. I mean, it's just not patronize businesses that aren't being cool,
And beyond that, we talk about this all the time, Brienne sharing, and because of the work that we do, if COVID taught us anything, invest your dollars in your local community. It makes all the difference. Like you probably saw some of your favorite places close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like, it's a mixture of folks not being prepared to do a massive switch if they were doing things pretty old school and didn't have the want or need or capacity or ability to make a pivot to a to-go model. And we saw places close that probably needed to close, right? So like and that's okay too. But we very strongly, we talk about this constantly. Lady Justice fully survives because we have a community who very much believes in our mission, and we also happen to make great beer, right? So like, if we are not mission driven, if we're not doing the work of our mission, then we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. We could be making award-winning beer left and right, but if we stopped giving our money away, if we stopped partnering with community organizations, then we're not Lady Justice Brewing. And that'd be fine, but we couldn't call ourselves that, right? So like that piece, that stuff matters. If you see breweries doing really cool things, go out and support them. If you're not comfortable going out yet, I don't blame you. That's fine. But figure out other ways that you can support them. Send them a DM and say, y'all doing to-go stuff? You got any merch? How can I help? Maybe it's just a repost. Those are the types of things that super matter. And beyond breweries, to other small businesses that you love. We truly talk about this constantly. It's a never-ending conversation.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Like people who aren't familiar necessarily with small businesses or haven't like been exposed to like the behind the scenes of like a small business maybe don't really understand how powerful just sharing a post can be to a small local business. Like 2 seconds of your time. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Well, you did mention that you guys make kick-ass beer. So Betsy, let's talk about the beer, because after all, you guys are a brewery. What are some of the beers that you guys usually have on tap? I know you mentioned the Sandra Day IPA. And what are the beers that you just love to drink and brew at Lady J?
Sandra Day IPA is always on, and then our Liberty Lager, which we're drinking right now, actually, is almost always on. And then we have an ESB that we actually have on quite a bit because ESBs are really hard to find, and people lose their minds when they see that we have them.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I love it. It's one of my favorite ones to drink. So those three are always in rotation. And then it's kind of like whatever we want to drink. Like right now we have a rose blonde on tap that we tap every summer. I've been trying to bring pale ales back just in like the general world of brewing. So I think I'm on my number 3. I think I'm about to release my 3rd pale ale this summer. Just because I went to the liquor store the other day and it was a small liquor store. It was like little family owned liquor store down the street. But like I went in there specifically to buy an IPA, and there was only 4 brands pale ale. There's only 4 brands on the shelf, and I was like, "What happened to the pale ales?" And I texted a friend of mine who happens to be a beer writer, and I was like, "Dude, where did the pale ales go? Where did they go?" And he was like, "I don't know. Nobody's drinking them anymore." And so it's been my summer of the pale ale. We've got those, and we have a stout that we'll put on at some point. I'm about to brew our Marzen next week because we're hitting Oktoberfest season.
Yay!
Yeah.
Our Marzen dope, and it's called Lady Hosen, and that name is very funny.
Oh my god, I love it. That's perfect.
Mixing up with that. That feels right. This is the blessing of being the marketing director. I'm like, I'm going to come up with most of the names of the beer, and Lady Hosen killed me. Oh my god, laughed forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So, Lady Hosen will tap in September.
Yeah, it's very good. So Betsy's go-to is always a pale ale. I lean pale ales, but I'm going to say some blasphemy. So like everybody will be like, Lady Justice was cool until Allison opened her mouth. I can't with a Citra hop. I'm over it. It's a very unpopular opinion, and I know this, and I own it. My favorite character from The Office is Ryan. Like, I live for an unpopular hot take. So I don't love a Citra hop, and it's everywhere. It's getting too hoppy and juicy and balmy, and I need a break. And so I was really heavy into sours for probably like 3 years, and I'm now leaning back into like a Pilsner, a Kolsch, like a smash, like a clean, straightforward beer. Isn't that easy to find anymore? And when I do, I'm like, ooh, baby, let me get that heels. So I'm here for the simple stuff that you can't mask any bullshit. It better be a good beer. because
That's why I loaded the car with this before I left
Oh,
Denver.
here's that.
Literally my favorite beer on the earth.
Woman brewed.
Yep. Yeah, woman brewed and a long ass beer day. What is it? A 30-hour brew day or something crazy that Ashley does to brew slow pour pills. For those of you that can't see this podcast with your eyes.
Yeah, slow pour pills.
The badass. And her beer is badass. Oh
yeah.
That's
Well, you're on the right podcast if you want to drink pilsners and kolsches and clean beers, because that's what we love to drink. We are a very lager happy podcast.
We always say we're super spoiled being in Pennsylvania because of the Pennsylvania Dutch German lager brewing history. You actually like good, clean traditional lagers actually aren't hard to find around here, even in Philadelphia. Just because of the history of the state. So we're pretty spoiled in that regard. So yeah, yay lagers.
The first lager in the States was brewed in the city of Philadelphia, and there is a historical marker in Philly. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah.
I love this. I'm obsessed with Pennsylvania because, as I just stated, I'm obsessed with The Office. So
oh God, Scranton is not that exciting.
I don't need it to be exciting. But it's fine. I pretend like it is. We all know that they filmed in LA. It's fine.
But they do put little nods to Pennsylvania and to Scranton in the show. And for those of we're not, I mean, we're what, an hour and a half from Scranton. But you do notice those things and chuckle at them. And like when they mention the Steamtown Mall, and I'm like, I've been to the Steamtown Mall. Like it is kind of cool. But I do love that show very much. It is one of my favorites.
It's deep in my soul. Kate and I have we were guests on a podcast called the Michael Scott Podcast Company.
Nice.
And they had us on because Lady Justice Brewing followed them and commented on their stuff. And then I had surgery in October. I have stage 4 endometriosis. And so I had surgery, and it's a really long recovery time with a lot of drugs. And so I was in bed for 8 weeks, just truly hanging out, doing Lady J's social media posts when I was with it enough. And then I sent them this crazy long email, I own a brewery and my friend Kate also loves The Office. And one time we brewed a beer and we called it Threat Level Midnight. And I just love you guys. And just think what you're doing is really great. From Lady Justice, signing, I was out of my mind. And they responded and they were like, we would love to have you and Kate on as our first ever guests. And so Kate and I were the guests on their 100th episode. I told
Betsy is shaking her head right now.
Yeah, I told Betsy, I loved getting married to you, but this is up there. It was the honor of a lifetime. And
oh
my God, we had so much fun. So we got to talk about the brewery. And now to this day, folks come in weekly and they're like, oh, I heard about you guys on the Michael Scott Podcast Company. And I'm like, it is a full circle moment because the two things I love so much are The Office and beer. So
that's awesome.
That's wonderful. I love it. So I see you guys have a lot of national park posters hanging behind you, which I myself am also a lover of the national parks. I've been to 40 some. I've kind of lost count.
Hey.
My favorite is Zion. I got to hike the Narrows, I guess it's 2 years ago now, which is legit the best hike I've ever done in my whole entire life. So I'm curious what your favorite park is.
Ooh, mine I think is Canyonlands. I love the Needles and but I mean Zion's kind of over there too, and that's beautiful.
I'm cheating and choosing. I mean, I love Rocky Mountain National Park, and I know that's such a cop-out answer, but it's so big and it's right here. I grew up in Milwaukee, and this is being out in the mountains is a much different experience for me. I've been here for 11 years, but I never tire. I walk outside and I'm like, oh, mountains every time. So I love Rocky Mountain, and you can just pull off and car camp anywhere. I love it. I love it.
Should we play a game?
Are we at game time?
I think we're at game time.
Is it game
I feel like
time?
we're all smiling. We all have beer in our hand.
Well,
we need more beer than this in our hands.
Do I need
I mean, if you guys want to refill before we do the game, go for it.
to grab something for us to split?
Yeah. Having a drink during the game is a good
We did
idea.
a very Wisconsin thing and put a beer fridge in our garage.
Nice.
I don't know if you ever have put a fridge in your garage specifically for beer, but I guess that's a very specific thing that people in Wisconsin do.
Well, we just put a fridge in our basement at our tiki bar just for beer.
Nice.
I have not yet been to the tiki bar.
Oh, that's right. You haven't been to the tiki bar
I
yet.
haven't
You are
been there
missing out.
since you, yeah.
It is something I am quite proud of.
Because COVID.
Well, yeah. Well, we said one day, let's make a tiki bar, and we made a tiki bar.
Because COVID, I built, I'm looking at it right now for Christmas this year. I built Betsy. We have an epic basement, a killer bar down there. But I built her a bar in our dining room all by myself. I was very proud. I'm really bad at measuring, hammering, all of it. So when she came home, she was like, holy shit, you did this?
I hear the trick is
COVID.
I hear the trick is measure twice, cut once. I've heard that before.
Yeah, or if you're me, my go-to move, and Betsy always is just like, who the hell are you? I measure, I like hold my arms and I'm like, this is it. But then I walk and like my arms come together, like, apart.
Just use a measuring tape. It's what it's
I started to hang these and she was like, in no world is your non-measuring ass going to be touching that beautifully patterned wall. So there we are.
Yet the clocks are synced.
Yeah, weird. Particular with time, not so much with space.
There it is.
I am who I am.
This surprises me, I have to say.
That is an interesting
Listen,
fact.
I'm a resourceful gal and I don't have time to be measuring. It's why I'm not the brewer. Oh my God. Could you imagine? Like, oh, did I put in hops? No, I'll put in more hops. Like, what a tragedy it would be for anyone if I ever brewed a beer. I can make a cider in the basement. That's the extent of my...
Well, hold on. Can you clean?
Oh, yes.
Then you would be a great brewer.
That, we do talk about that a lot. Brewing is cleaning and moving liquids from one vessel to another vessel.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all it is.
That's it.
It's pretty much.
Yeah, adding the hops is just the pretty part. That's the Instagrammable part of brewing.
That's all it is.
You can look through my phone and see all the photos and videos I have of Betsy adding hops and being like,
that's the pretty part.
I have some pretty
squeegee.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have some pretty sweet video of Dan, who was with us, squeegeeing on one of our collab brews, because that's all he did. But he did it well.
If we're going to do collab brews, I'm going to do the fun stuff.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, you get to do the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Like blending the roasted habaneros. That's probably my favorite part of a collab brew day ever.
That was fun.
We were making it was a roasted habanero. I think it was an IPA, actually. That was before we hated IPAs. Because it was an actual IPA, not like this hazy John. We won't get on that soapbox.
Yeah.
But they had a whole box of fresh habaneros, and they were like, how many of them should we use? And I looked at them, I'm like, we're going to use the whole box. Like, you're not going to make a habanero beer and not put habaneros in it. And then after the fact, the guy who was the head brewer there at the time admitted that I was correct. So, I mean, that's why I started brewing, because no one was making beers that were spicy enough for me. So I'm not afraid to put a pepper in a beer.
Can I tell you my favorite pepper beer of all time is the Jalapeno Pale Ale from Birdsong in Charlotte. Oh, man.
Oh, I've never had that one.
Very good.
And I would say, like, that flavor, it's peppery. And it gives a little heat, but, like, it's just clean jalapeno in a way that is respectable. I feel like people are either like, I want it to burn, but I have no pepper flavor. And I'm like, that's not enjoyable. Or I don't get any. And this one, it's like, it's really good. We also have a brewery down the street from us, Spice Trade Brewing, and they do what is their pepper beer called? I can't think of it. But they're also an Indian restaurant. And so like you're having like, oh.
I do one pepper beer that I always forget about that we did for Suave Fest last year. It's a strawberry habanero wheat beer.
Ooh.
That sounds nice.
That sounds delightful.
Yeah.
Most habanero beers end up with mango. So I'm happy to hear a fruit that's not a mango with habanero.
Yeah, I did it with strawberry. And then we threw glitter in it for fun because it was for a beer festival.
Perfect.
Yeah, we like to be like really gay and fabulous anywhere we can. We're just like, fucking here's some glitter, babe.
During Pride Week at Lady J, you can get your beer, or you can order your beer fabulous, and our beer tenders will throw we'll throw glitter in it during Pride
That's
Week.
amazing.
I love
Let's
it.
be clear. It's edible, like luster. It is not plastic.
Yeah.
It's okay to
Edible luster.
Edible
Can that be
luster.
the name of this episode, please?
Yes, edible luster with the homos from Lady Justice. Like, that's it. Cheers.
If you don't clarify that, you get emails from people asking us to stop putting
Plastic.
killer plastics into our products. And I was like, do you really think that's what we do here?
Like, that
And
would
do
be
I
dumb.
respond and say, do you think that I would feed you plastic?
Yeah.
I would not.
Oh, I feel like that needs to be your next shirt. Edible luster.
Edible luster.
Oh, with like a glittery typeface. I love it.
Oh, yes.
Well, are we ready
Let's game
for a
it.
game? Let's do a game.
Yeah.
Cheers, Internet, and welcome to Happy Fun Time Games, the podcast trivia segment that always comes in on a breeze. Joining us today in Happy Fun Time Games are Betsy Lay, owner and head brewer, and Allison Wisniewski, director of marketing at Lady Justice Brewing in Aurora, Colorado. Thank you for joining us. They will be battling it out with my co-host Steph, not Dan because he's sick today, unfortunately. For the
No, he's scared.
He's scared. He's too scared to play this game. We'll go with that. But they will be battling it out for the completely meaningless title of Happy Fun Time Champion. This episode, we will be playing everyone's favorite celebration or condemnation of bizarre brews and libations made with ingredients of varying levels of absurdity that we call There's Weird in My Beer. So in this game, I'll tell you a little bit about each curious quaff, and you must choose from 3 multiple choice options what the weird is in each beer. So we will begin to my left, where I don't find Dan, or anyone actually, because this is all virtual at this point, but we'll start with Steph, our first beer of the game. This beer is described by the brewery as a Thai-inspired lager and includes many flavors of Thailand. It's brewed with lemongrass, galangal root, and kaffir lime leaves, all atop a foundation, or a backbone, if you will, provided by a foundational Eastern culinary staple. Is it seaweed, jasmine rice, or egg noodles?
I'm going to say jasmine rice.
Steph going with the jasmine rice. Betsy, what do you think?
I'm going to go seaweed.
All right, going with seaweed. 2 different answers so far. Allison.
Jasmine rice.
Going with the jasmine rice. Allison and Steph are correct because it is, in fact, jasmine rice. It was brewed
Usually when I pick the one that makes sense, it's wrong.
That's true.
I went with seaweed. I was like, I thought this game is called Weird in My Beer.
I was like, rice lager, it makes sense. So it's probably not right.
As a general disclaimer, this game is called There's Weird in My Beer. We've also been playing this game for almost 8 years, and I sometimes run out of really strange beers, so sometimes I have to use beers that just have jasmine rice in
That
them.
beer sounds amazing.
But it
and I
does
would
sound
drink
really good. It does. I would love to try it. It was brewed by Diamond Knot Craft Brewing and Scuttlebutt Brewing, both in Washington State, and it's called Tie Me Up. Besides the rice and other ingredients mentioned above, the brewers say late additions of Sriracha Ace, Mosaic, and Allison's favorite, Citra, impart a bright and welcoming aroma. I actually did want to ask you what...
Does it?
That's what they say. That last bit was a literal quote. That's what they said, not me. But I did want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Simcoe?
I mean, I'm not as sick of it,
Yeah, but you don't like it.
but I don't love it.
All right, fair enough.
I'm not seeking it out. I just prefer a different hop story.
I get that. My traditional favorite hop is always Simcoe, but I get where you're coming from.
Once you get past the urine smell of
Yeah, once you get past the urine, it's fine. You can say that about a lot of things.
Yeah. That's the other name of this episode.
That's also a very good one. We'll let Dan decide. Moving on to our second beer of the game, and Betsy, you're going to guess first on this one. This is an Imperial Pastry Stout that takes the pastry side of that equation very seriously. It's brewed with a list of the expected ingredients, such as coconut and toasted cacao, but also a staple of pastry baking that is usually left out of pastry stout recipes. Is it eggs, flour, or butter?
Oh, please let it be flour. Oh, no.
Please let it be flour. Allison, what do you think?
I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but butter?
Okay. Interesting choice of words as well. I can't believe I'm going to say it's butter.
Diacetyl? I don't know. This is a wild conversation.
Yeah, right?
It really is. See, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of this game. Steph?
I don't know why anyone would add butter. I mean,
They might
I don't know.
They add butter. If it does taste like that.
I mean, we have heard of beers
point.
that have flour in them. So, like, that's the one that makes sense. But you also said
This-
it was an ingredient that's not typically put in.
I will, if it helps, this is not a beer from Tired Hands.
Oh, Jesus. I'll say eggs. I don't know.
All right, everybody
I
going...
think it's flour, but eggs. I'm
All
going
right.
to say eggs.
Okay, well, everybody gave a different answer. Always excited when that happens. It wasn't flour or eggs. It was, in fact, butter. Which means
Suck
Allison...
it! Oh my god.
Why would you do that?
It was butter, and it's called I Can't Believe It's Butter.
Oh my god. Why
Yes,
would you
indeed.
do
Literal
that?
perfect beer name. I love that.
Yep. So this was another collaboration beer, this one between New Image Brewing and Molly's Spirits, both in
Nope.
Colorado.
Well, those are ours.
Oh
we
my
live.
God.
The closest brewery we could throw and hit a rock and hit New Image.
I literally just bought New Image's delivery van for Lady Justice.
I think this is a
amazing.
podcast first.
That really is. I do think.
I am going to call him and ask him what the hell was that was.
No, ask him what point in the process did he add the butter? That's what I
Was
want
it
to
just
know.
one stick to just say he did it? I have
Right.
questions, Brandon. If you're listening, what are you doing, baby? What are you doing?
So I do have some notes here. Founder Brandon Capps, who you mentioned, noted that a true pastry stout would naturally incorporate butter because when you make pastries, you use butter. Boldly flying in the face of all the diacetyl jokes that he knew was coming, he claims the use of the organic butter extract, if that helps, actually adds an authentic baked goods flavor that other pastry stouts lack.
I will say,
I'm pro. I support it.
Knowing him and knowing this brewery, I would vouch for it without even trying it. I'm sure it tasted good because he can just do that. But I have questions for him.
Butter extract. You can. So if y'all don't know this, listeners who are also bakers like me, baking with butter extract is a literal game changer. And if you put a little bit of butter extract into a box cake, people will be certain you made it fresh, homemade.
Interesting.
Hot tips.
That's a good hot tip. I like that. I'm going to remember that. Very good, very good. Yeah, it was in fact butter. This was, I believe, I don't have it in my notes. I didn't write this down, but I believe this was for the Collaboration Fest in 2018.
Yeah, that would track.
Where I get a lot of beers for this game from that fest because there's a lot of crazy beers.
Yeah, and Molly's is one of the 6 liquor stores that sells Lady Justice beer.
Oh,
So
cool.
here's them.
Yeah.
Wow.
All around good people there.
Wonderful, wonderful crew that you just shared. We have questions about their butter choices. We love that.
That's awesome. It's not
I
often.
need a follow up here. I need answers.
Yeah, we're gonna be in touch and we're gonna get some answers for our listeners in the future. Yeah, it's not often, if ever, that it happens that something in the game actually has a personal connection to our guests. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So we are moving on to our penultimate beer of the game, and Allison, you are up to guess first. This one actually is not a beer, but a hard seltzer.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm on.
Yeah. So it was only a matter of time before seltzers started bleeding into Happy Fun Time games. We featured them before. They're fair game just like beer. So this is a hard seltzer. It's made with a long list of fruity flavors such as cherries, raspberries, blackberries, guava, tangerine, and grapefruit. Sounds pretty cool. But one more ingredient that is not like the others and provides a touch of nostalgia. Is it Tang, Hawaiian Punch, or Kool-Aid?
I'm gonna go Hawaiian Punch.
All right, Allison going with the Hawaiian Punch. Steph?
I'm going to say Tang.
All right, we have a Hawaiian Punch, we have a Tang, and finally Betsy.
I'm going Tang as well.
Oh, 2 Tangs and a Hawaiian Punch. Nobody correct, because the answer was Kool-Aid.
I honestly was like, I bet it was Kool-Aid because you're gonna get more color than flavor. Damn it.
It's also really easy to find in powder form.
This is true, yes. Very easy to add to a beer. This was made by the 8th State Brewing Company in South Carolina. It's a fizzy fruit juice with booze, including Kool-Aid, Though the particular flavor I couldn't find. They don't anywhere on the internet. I couldn't find what flavor of Kool-Aid they used for this beer, but
What color was it?
I can verify it was very red.
Red.
So, whatever red Kool-Aid is, cherry, I don't know. It's been a while. But it was indeed Kool-Aid, and we have one more question left in the game, so this is the point at which we add up our scores so far to see where everyone stands. And it looks like in the lead with 2 out of 3 answers correct so far is Allison. Right behind
I live to win games. I am the youngest of 5, and this is my dream. Thank
Fair.
you.
That makes a lot of sense.
On public stage. Cheers.
Fair enough. Steph, you are right behind with only 1 point. Betsy, and I know I've only just met you, but I'm going to guess that you're kind of the opposite, and you don't care if you're losing. You have no points.
Not a bit.
I'm sure, I just got the impression you could care less if you were losing.
Yeah, I'm here for the beers.
I'm here for the beer. That's fair. So at this point in the game, we let the person in last place guess last, so you get to hear everyone else's guesses first. That was a difficult sentence. So we're going to start with Allison, go to Steph, and end with Betsy on our last beer of the game. This is a British-style golden ale that is pretty true to style in all but one aspect. One ingredient in the brewing process, and one that most people don't really think about, was swapped out with something the brewers use in their shared outdoor hobby. Is it rock climbing salt, rock climbing chalk, scuba diving grease, or hang gliding salt?
I don't understand any of those options.
Can you repeat them one more time?
I can.
I'm horrified, so I need help.
I flubbed the first one, and this is a weird one. So it is rock climbing chalk, scuba diving grease, or hang gliding salt.
For the hope of my heart, I'm gonna say hang gliding salt.
All right, going.
And I don't want chalk.
A logical conclusion. Steph, what do you think?
Well, I was going to say the salt, but if I have any hope of at least tying for first, I can't say the same thing. So I'm going to go with the chalk instead.
All right, going with the chalk. No love for the grease so far, Betsy.
Let's go grease. Let's get it in there.
Why mix it up? Mix it up. And would you believe it? It is, in fact, the rock climbing chalk.
I kind of wondered that because chalk is part of water addition.
That's true. That's very true.
I will also say that the other two things are completely made up. They don't exist. There's no such thing as scuba diving grease.
I was like,
didn't know what hang gliding salt was, but I wanted it.
In my head, I was like, scuba grease must be like slang for something I don't understand.
Yeah.
In my head, I thought when you're in the sky, do you catch salt? When you're hang gliding, I don't care. I just hope that's what it is. So.
Salt would be the most obvious choice there. Made all of that up. None of that is real. But this beer is called Limey Unicorn, and that name will make sense in a moment. It was brewed by Wincoop Brewing, whose brewing team are avid rock climbers.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. If I'd known this thing was in Denver, I would have gone chalk.
They brewed it in collaboration with Friction Labs, who produces the rock climbing chalk in question. The particular chalk that was used is called Unicorn Dust, hence the name. You may know, as mentioned, that brewers often use chalk or calcium carbonate, brewer's chalk, along with other salts and minerals to adjust water chemistry. The climbing chalk is magnesium carbonate and was used instead, had a similar effect by all accounts. Brewer Charles McManus said, "It all started with a joke between myself and Wincoop brewer Jason Lima that we could just use the chalk we use at the brewery to climb if we ever ran out of actual climbing chalk."
You're lucky it's a cute story, Wincoop, because I don't love it.
I will say...
Makes sense, but I'm also not a brewer, so I'm imagining reaching into a climbing bag and gagging, so...
I've never encountered rock climbing salt. I don't know what it looks like.
I can tell you that it shows up in the same way that brewers chalk, or brewers like additions do. So, like a calcium chloride just shows up in a plastic Ziploc bag, and so does brewer's chalk. So I can see the appeal. They're packaged the same way.
It all makes sense. I did want to mention the inspiration for the scuba diving grease came from an old CSI episode. Apparently, scuba divers use soap to get into their wetsuits.
Yeah.
So apparently that's
it's like baby oil to get into anything worn at the Met Gala. That tracks.
Really? That's a thing?
Yeah. You also wear rubber suits. You're never going to be Lady Gaga if you don't think like Lady Gaga, Betsy.
Yeah.
Get on it.
You have to have something between that material and your skin, or the chafing will just be.
Well, it's that episode of Friends where Ross puts on the leather pants.
Yeah.
If
You're not singing Slip Sliding Away when you're putting on your rubber suit. What are you doing?
Exactly. So we're going to add up the scores real quick here, see who our big winners are. We have a two-way tie for first place, both with 2 points apiece. Steph pulling it out at the end there. Allison and Steph, 2 points each, tied for first.
I think we have 3 points each.
No.
2?
It was 2.
2?
Two.
How many
was
questions did we have? 4? So yeah, it would be 2.
I really had to double take, because usually when you correct me, you're right. But in this case, a rare circumstance in which you were wrong.
My head is full of scuba diving grease now.
Fair enough. Scuba diving grease. I don't know if that's a thing. Like, I heard they use soap. I like, somebody should make it specifically for that purpose. But whatever.
Our next beer will be named Scuba Diving Grease.
There you
named
go.
after you. What a gift.
Betsy's shaking. her head.
Everyone will drink
True.
it.
That's not
Everyone
true.
will love it.
It's false.
It's appetizing.
Fake news.
Oh.
That's false.
That is false. That is incorrect. But yes, thank you for playing. If you're watching this video on YouTube right now, thank you so much for watching. Do the YouTube things, you know what they are. But this is the point of the podcast where we have to shout out to our most generous patrons on Patreon. And this is, again, another point in the podcast where I have to do Dan's job at the same time as mine. And I don't know if I've actually ever done this part before. So I'm going to attempt to read out the names of our top tier patrons and play sound clips at the same time without completely screwing
Here we
it up.
go. Here we go.
So this is going to be something. I'm just going to hit random buttons. But we would like to thank our most generous patrons, beginning with Ben Mangle. Good start. Chris Mahoney,
Where's your glass?
Dana,
Clams?
Sean Sullivan,
Steph, why are you the worst?
Topher Simmons,
I want to freeze it and just lick it on the porch.
PA Brew Review,
Oh, yeah.
Jill Chivers,
And don't try it, motherfuckers.
James Lamberg, ooh, another air horn, Eric Dixon,
That was a gusher.
Jen McDonnell,
Jalapeno.
thank you, Brian Mills,
I love all people.
and the one and only That's No Baloney, Joe Mansell.
That was a gusher.
If you want to find out how you can get on this list and get other cool behind-the-scenes perks, go to patreon.com/beerbusters, where you can sign up to be a patron for as little as $1 a month. But now, we need to pay our tab. So here are some commercials.
Say, Yvonne, remember when I said I'd have to send away to NASA to calculate your bar tab?
Oh, yeah. We all had a good laugh, Mo.
The results came back today. You owe me $70 billion.
This episode of Beer Busters is brought to you in part by Audible. Discover what millions already have. You don't just listen to an Audible book, you feel it. You can go over to audibletrial.com/beerbusters to sign up for your free 30-day membership. Plus, you get one book to get you started. After that, each month is $14.95. You get a credit a month for a book. Good for any book, regardless of price. It's ad-free, premium audio you listen to offline with no interruptions. It's your own library to build. You keep your books forever, even if you cancel. Exclusive member-only savings like 30% off additional audiobooks each month. There's easy exchanges. If you don't love a book, swap it for free anytime. Seriously. That is audibletrial.com/beerbusters for your 30-day trial.
Oh yeah,
I
I'm
see it.
totally repping you guys tonight.
I
Too.
saw it, and you got the maroon, which is like hot seller. Congrats.
Right. Dana got the green.
Those are the two that sold out instantly.
Yes, and we got the glass in blue.
Amazing.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, that glass. I was going to drink from it, and then I was like, is that dorky? But then I drank from a Lady J glass anyway, so I don't know.
No, it's not. Well, and you're marketing, so I feel like it's expected.
This is what I'm saying. I'm constantly just like, why are we not always all wearing? Should I get a Lady J tattoo? Like,
forehead.
Is that the vibe? Is that what we're going for?
That could be pretty cool. I mean, you guys have a pretty badass logo. It would be an awesome tattoo.
I love our logo. I love talking about our logo. Are we done, or do we talk?
Oh no, please talk about your logo. I would love to hear about it.
Awesome. Okay, so our logo was designed by they're on their third iteration and name, but so that's the logo, and we have it. This is the more traditional version of it. So our logo was designed. We entered a contest in 2019 at CBC, GABF.
No, they just emailed us and they were like, "We have this contest."
Oh, so this design studio at the time, they were called Cole Studio, out of Salt Lake City. They were like, "We're doing this design contest. You should do it." And we entered, and we didn't win, but they messaged us and they were like, "We just wanted you to win, and like you didn't win because of the luck of the draw, but we're going to give you the winnings anyway because we love your mission. If you're interested in a rebrand." And for us, so we had our former. Do you have our? Not anywhere quick that we could grab it. So our former logo, we loved, but it was not easy to recreate. It was like kind of
looked more like,
I'll pull it up to show y'all, but
figure.
Anyone, if like for listeners, you can just Google Lady Justice Brewing and you'll see it. It's like a fractal image of Lady Justice herself, not holding the sword and holding a beer up in the air. It was really difficult to draw, and you would think to yourself, why would you draw it? Beer festivals, chalk signs.
There it is. Oh, yeah.
So it was not an easy thing to recreate.
Yeah.
And getting color match on the like 20 colors that were involved in it was difficult and expensive. So we hit a point where we knew we wanted to do it. But for me, my work is in branding, marketing, and I had to say the sentence out loud. There are things that I hold really close to my chest, and my love of this brewery is one of them. And I said, I don't think that I have it in me to do this rebrand. It's really hard for me to stay outside of the scope. And I just logically can't do it. So when Cole Studio reached out, we were just like, yeah, let's have someone else take a stab at this. Just like, we're thinking to ourselves, like 3 dudes from Salt Lake City, what are they going to do? And they nailed it. They really knocked it out of the park. So they were patient with us. We went back and forth 3 times. Yeah, so there's our old logo. There's just like a quick view. So not easy to recreate, difficult fonts to find, whatever. So we told them we wanted something a little more clear and a little more focused and easy to recreate. And they came back and forth a lot. They had initially tried to deconstruct Lady Justice herself. And so they had broken it into 4 parts. They had done the sword, the scales, the Justice is blind concept, and...
Well, she wears a blindfold.
Yeah, but they did. And how do you draw just a blindfold? So they drew an eye closed. And then we had a long philosophical conversation about there's a difference between Justice is blind. So a blindfold versus an eye closed to Justice. And so, to the point that I was like, are we being obscene and obnoxious for these poor people who just asked if they could just redo our logo, and they've been working on this for months? But they ended up coming back to us with our current logo, and all of us were just like, oh my God, that's it.
We had this meeting with Jake, who was the guy who did it. And we had been going back and forth. And what I realized is that the reason what he was doing wasn't working is because we had actually taken all of those elements out of our logo to begin with. So the original logo didn't have a blindfold. It didn't have a sword, and it actually didn't have the scales in it. And so I was like, this doesn't connect with me because it actually isn't anything about what our old logo was. And so once we landed on that, he's like, okay, like, let me see what I can come back with. And we had this call, and he's like, y'all, literally, like, I didn't have anything new for you until I woke up in the middle of the night last night with this, like, one idea. Do you want to see it? And I was like, yeah, like, let's see it. And
it's our logo. And so he really hit. We told him we were going for, like, 60s law firm vibe, because that was our original plan. And he hit it, like nail on head.
Mad Men, but for feminists.
Yeah, like feminist Mad Men. Like, everyone is Peggy. That was the vibe. So he really nailed it, knocked it out of the park. They've since gone through a couple of rebrands and are now going by half day studio. So if anyone's ever looking for some really cool stuff, they've done incredible work. And we're really fortunate that they provided us these labels and then gave us the files for me to be able to edit and manipulate for anything that we need moving forward. But the simple elongated hand holding a tulip glass is what kind of propelled us into making some decisions moving forward. We now serve our beer in tulip glasses, right? Because it matches the logo. We have a really simple color scheme that we bounce between 7 traditional colors that keep us really grounded and help us stand out on shelves. Those are the things that we were thinking of. We like simplicity, but we want to have someone see it. And similar for us in Colorado to seeing the left hand, the red hand, you see it and I want it to be, you see that hand holding that tulip glass and it's Lady Justice. And I think we're getting there. People know it. We started putting it on our merch, just the logo without writing Lady Justice under it sometimes, depending on the merch item. And so far, so good.
Super cool. It's really
cool.
cool.
We got the tie-dye hats as well. We snagged a few of those while we were out there, which I forget. And I have to say, I love the inside of the cap, which is awesome. But I also love that they are small, medium. And also there's a large size because I have a very large head.
I have an enormous head. This is honestly one of my favorite topics of conversation. Look at Betsy and I's heads next to each other. And you don't think much of it. But Betsy has very big, thick, long, curly hair. And I still have to expand my cap size on a snapback to fit my big fat head. I got a big fat head. Some of us need an LXL.
Yep. No, I completely agree. So we each got one, but in different sizes.
Yeah, you did.
So that was really awesome.
I love that. Yeah, we love our logo. We love Half Day, so check them out if anyone's ever looking for and branding of any sort. They just do the coolest stuff. And tell them Lady Justice sent you, and they'll giggle. They're the best.
And they'll
Perfect.
giggle. And they'll giggle.
That's better than a discount.
But you will get a giggle, and that's pretty great.
Little gigs. Yeah,
love it.
That reminds me of a thing I saw. I follow a lot of. I'm into like graphic design and stuff, but more of like a hobby. And I follow a lot of like design accounts on Instagram, and I saw one the other day that was like, why are modern logos so much more minimalist and simplified and like basically, like basic geometry than like the old like 1940s very like ornate crests? And it was like because we have smartphones. And because it needs to be readable as an icon on a smartphone. And it ended with, like, I just saved you a year of design school.
Yeah. Yeah, Betsy and I both have our degrees in design, different ways. So her undergrad is digital
media.
Yeah, digital media, which is what they called it back in 2000 out there.
Yeah.
And
it was brand new.
Oh, my God. It was, have you heard of Adobe? And then...
have you heard of Adobe?
My undergrad is in journalism and then fine art photography. And so we both have that skill set, and it's it has come in really useful. Amy, who brewed for us, is an incredible painter. And I feel like we saw that in some of her beer recipes that we still brew, very painterly, very artistic. So that part's been really cool. And then like having the analytical side of lawyers on the other part of our team, like it just, all of it very much makes sense when I look at Lady Justice from the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that struck me as super interesting at the top of our conversation was the distinction between like you're not like a non-profit organization and that sort of like, that complicated legalese kind of like how you have to contort yourself to do what you want to do but still comply with all the laws. I find that weirdly interesting, but not enough that I would want to do that as a living.
Yeah, we don't recommend it.
Yeah.
Make it work.
But yeah,
and
so
it's fun.
So having a couple of lawyers on the team for what you're doing makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it has been anything that comes like city ordinances is what we're looking at right now. And it's really useful. Immediately, Kate was like, oh my God, I'd love to look at this. Just like trying to get food trucks figured out for our space. We can't have them. But Kate was like, no. I see some loopholes and we're going to make it work. So like that part is really useful having her read it. And she's like, what I'm getting from the language is this. And like, she can just spit it out really quick. Where it's Betsy and I reading it forever. Just being like,
I don't read
do you think that's what this says?
I love the ability to just spot loopholes. Like I see loopholes.
That's a superpower.
Yeah.
Kate, that is Kate's superpower.
Mm-hmm.
That and really, really bad beer names. Some of the worst.
She's not good at beer names. She is good at loopholes.
She did name our pale ale. We said, what should we name it? And we let her take it. Pals Pale Ale. And she was like, because we're all pals. And we were like, all right, Kate. Sure. Pals it is.
I mean, it's fine. It's cute and non-offensive, and it works.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a pal.
Everybody's got a pal.
If you're ever wondering about the mystifying world of naming beers, it's this. It's a group text with employees. So enjoy.
Yeah, we love coming up with amazing beer names on this podcast. Very few people actually use them, though.
We're in.
There are a few.
There are a few.
There are a few out there.
I still want to see
our favorites.
I want to see Mom Wants an IPA.
Mom Wants an IPA is a very funny beer name.
I just love that story, and that like it just fits so perfect. That's amazing.
It could be like the imperial version of the Sandra Day IPA, or the session version.
I would love a session version.
I'm okay with a session IPA.
I love sessions. Love a session. I don't need to be getting ripped every time I have a beer. Dang.
Yeah, I agree. Well, this was fun.
Yes, it was. It was super fun. Lots of amazing stories. Cool to hear the amazing things going on at Lady Justice Brewing. But this does, unfortunately, my friends, bring us to the end of another episode of Beer Busters. We would like to thank Betsy and Allison for joining us. It's been amazing to meet and chat with you and learn all about the amazing things going on at Lady Justice Brewing. I meant to turn down the iPad, and I turned down my own microphone. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yay!
I don't know what I'm doing because I'm not Dan Baker. I am Wayne Baker, and I am joined by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hefner.
And the Demented and Fermented. That's usually what comes next, but that's me. I'm Wayne Baker, and I have 7 seconds left to vamp. No squids were harmed in the making of this episode. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye. Everything is on fire. And that's the end of the episode.